What's up, Vault Hunters? In this video we're going to have another look at the Borderlands 4 first look trailer. In the first video I did on this, we just did a bit of general analysis and speculation. In this one, I've actually taken the different shots in the trailer and I've reordered them to try and connect the different locations in the trailer. So in this video we're going to have a look specifically at the locations, see how the areas that we see in the trailer connect, and just scan around, see if there's anything else that we can find here. I'll just show that reordered trailer first. It's a little bit scatty because the speeds all change between the clips, but I'll just let that play and then we'll slow it down, take it scene for scene, and I'll just tell you how a number of these areas link together, and we can imagine what those zones will feel like when we actually get to play Borderlands 4.
From the other side, what I need to show you is my obligation. How much longer can you hide? You can try and push away from me. You kick and scream, you're begging please. But once you get a little taste of freedom, you wanna get up off your knees. Come over.
We get to see about 5 different areas here, so we'll just go through this and see how they all connect up. It might not be this straightforward. A lot of the architecture and the themes for these areas might be muddled all throughout the game, but it's just some idea of how these areas maybe connect and what they might look like once we're in. So this is our first area, and this may be the most prevalent area throughout the trailer, and I think that there's specific reason for that, as this area probably is very, very significant to the story and the events that will take place in Borderlands 4. And one of the biggest parts of that, one of the things to note, is this big grid up in the sky. Now, we saw this before, but the first time I went through the trailer, I didn't realize how often you see this, how common it is in a lot of the locations, and I think that's specifically because this grid, and this is, I'll have to explain this as we go, but this grid appears to tie into that one main building that we've seen in both trailers so far. Big massive machine. I think that is basically the top of this area, and this grid runs off of that machine, that building, and it comes all the way to the sides here, and you see this kind of wall. This entire area is a mega city that is walled in on all sides underneath this building, and this grid, I don't know if this is to sort of prevent people coming in and out as well, or whether it's just a stylistic, I'm not sure, but the whole city appears to be trapped by the Timekeeper and his forces. I guess the idea is that they're here living in squalor, perhaps being made to work to do something that is progressing this machine, this massive device, and they're all blocked in here, and so we'll discover that perhaps in the story. You've got this greenhouse back here, just to note, we'll see that from a different angle I think later. It's worth noting all of my comments here are just speculative, and I'm making a lot of assumptions about these areas because the architecture that we see and the different kinds of themes to the areas may be all spread throughout Kairos, throughout the game. So we may see lots of this scattered around. These may not be the exact same areas, but in terms of their theme, in terms of the look, I've grouped them together so that we can just get a better feel for those locations and how they connect to the rest of the world, as it were. Okay, so we've got a bunch of other posters and other things. We obviously see the timekeeper over and over again, just staring down, just very oppressive. There's a mural here that we don't quite see, but it's worth noting there is quite clearly what appears to be a young female that has been drawn there. Whether that's just a random poster or whether that's some significance, I don't know. This area is full of trash. You'll see so much of this as we explore this specific kind of area in the video, but it's sort of favela-y, all sort of on top of itself, sort of lo-fi sort of tech, and yeah, you've got just bits and pieces all scattered together or mottled together with this sort of fairly common theme, particularly on the outskirts of the city, of just lots of trash, lots of refuse to deal with. So we'll jump to the next one. So this guy that was chilling before, I'd said that he might be connected to the area which I made a statement might be a sort of social space or a sanctuary equivalent, but I now think that this is actually just connected to the previous area. You can see in the back here we have that same grid in the sky, so it's got that kind of connection. The color tones, the architecture here all match with that previous zone. You can see the pipe here kicking out loads of runoff. Those are everywhere in this area. There are tons of those, massive ones, little ones, all sorts. So that's a very common theme. Down here we can see that there's another one of those nodes that the big guy, the Viking, grapples onto later on in the trailer. So presumably that's a way that you can get up there. Another bit of traversal. And then before we mentioned this mural up the top here, this is a little bit clearer. But I have a theory I'm working on, and this is one of the components of it, just about the story in Borderlands 4. That video hopefully won't be too long, but I think that mural is quite specific, is quite relevant, so just make note of that. Not too much else to look at here, so we'll move to the next one. Same again, you can see in the background here the grid is going through the sky, so this is now getting to more the central kind of area of this mega city. Down here we've got a lot bigger buildings. These are seemingly more kind of more upmarket. These are more kind of executive looking buildings, so it's a bit more of a more affluent area, and then it sort of gets towards the outskirts where all that excess of rubbish is and everything. I think there's still more around here, but that's just my interpretation of this. Timekeeper posters around, staring down, and I'm gonna try and stay on the location because it's very easy to drift off and talk about other things that are going on perhaps on the screen, but we're gonna try and stick with the location as much as I can today. And I've got a video I'm going to do on guns, probably, friendlies and enemies, just breaking down the components of the trailer just into a bit more bite-sized chunks, just to absorb it a bit more. The next clip, you can see in the background, this is further in, but you can still see the grid up in the sky, so I think this is connected to all of the locations we've seen so far, perhaps going further into the sort of city area. And not too much else to point out on this one. Again, this is probably, I think, midway, sort of out towards the outskirts, but sort of just sort of getting from the buildings to the more heavily sort of trashed area. And then on the right here, I believe that's where you can sort of see the top of it here, but you'd see the wall going around. This is sunk down, in my opinion, into the ground, and it's massive, walled in, partly sunk into the ground, partly above ground, as I'll point out. But again, you can see all of the grid in the sky connecting this. Same sort of architecture, same colors, so it's just sort of another expansion of that area. This is just a different angle. You can see the bigger buildings on the left here, and just sort of in the back where I think it's sort of starting to, that's now turning and looking towards sort of the center sort of, and this is the outside, if that makes sense. Just one other note on this clip, you can see in the background there that glass dome. So I don't know if it's just multiple glass domes, but it's this themed area and you have that glass dome in the back there. So it may be that this is the other side of that area that we saw in the first clip. Another shot of the outskirts area. Obviously looking back into the city, you can see the grid again, which is why I connect all of these areas together to be one location. I will explain more and show why I think that a bit later on, but for now we'll just move on. In terms of the location, I don't think there's too much more to point out here other than we have another mural here on the left. So I've got a better image of that. So it's very hard to tell, but I wonder if that is another kind of shot, a different angle of the same person that we saw in that other main mural. You've got this triangle again in a very similar style. It makes me feel like there's probably a person's face here with the triangle over their eyes. You can't quite make it out, but I think there's sort of a nose and a mouth roughly here. That being said, it does also look a bit like a World War II fighter of some description. Some World War II plane of some description with like a big sort of canopy, glass canopy here, but we won't worry about that for now. We've got the closed in bit in the sky again, so we can see that this is connected to the same area. On the left we've got the red lighting on the more fancy buildings, so this is sort of further in. You can see everything is all quite high up here, so I don't know if it sinks in more towards the middle or something perhaps, but that's just another shot of the same area, just down on the ground, presumably under that area here, but that doesn't tell us too much. Although it's worth noting there is a strange cut in the rocks here that makes a passageway that has a bit of an orangey glow. I don't think that's going to be connected to that other triangle, but it's interesting that that is so triangular. Excuse me. And that doesn't tell us anything about location. So this clip is how everything sort of ties together. So everything we've seen up till now, I believe to be one location. And this big machine, this big light in the background, I think is the massive tall building that we've seen in the teaser and in the first look trailer. That is obviously very significant, and we'll find it in a clip later. You can see that as this building, because it's kind of got this sort of mesh to it as well, but as this sort of architecture comes down, that then comes off into like a sheet where the sort of beams are covering over the skyline. And I think that this city is all walled in. It's like a prison city. All the people here are being forced by the timekeeper to do whatever it is that he wants done, presumably to progress this giant building, giant machine, whatever work they're doing down here. And so this machine is the main focus point, and assumingly, that's why I said about the red lights maybe meaning a breach or breaking in or breaking out, that, you know, things have gone wrong, maybe it's because we've come in, or something early on in the story will mean that, you know, the city is in kind of a lockdown, like it would kind of be anyway, but you know, at a higher alert than it maybe would be at other times. And a point of that would be that in the next clip we're going to look at, nope, not the next clip, although I think this is connected to the next area. So I believe that this area is actually at the walls. It's very close to the exterior wall to this mega city, and this here I think is the wall, and this massive door here would be maybe one of the checkpoints, or maybe an in and out place that the timekeeper uses with his forces for doing whatever they need to do. But this door has a big spray painted nope on it, which makes me feel like, you know, it's an in and out. It's not just a trivial door. It may be of some significance, and the nope is, no, you're not going anywhere. You are trapped here and you are doing as you're told, is I guess, the kind of vibe. On the left, as it pans around, we see two of those massive pipes just ditching out crap, all this trash down here. So I think that this is kind of, if that makes sense so far. So you've got the big central building, and then that sort of fans out over the sort of city that is partially sunk down into the floor with these massive walls around it. And then you've got sort of trash and refuse from the outsides going into sort of muddled buildings, going into more significant buildings, and then whatever's in the middle connecting to that main structure. Something like that. But everything up till now, I think, is all one location. Although I think maybe these cities are, I think maybe it's not just one of these cities. It may be that there's several of these on Kairos. From a very, very small detail in one picture I'll show you later, but it's sort of, you know, it doesn't really make too much difference. That's the kind of vibe of that kind of area. So this is our second area. Before I described this as looking very Fallen from Destiny 2, which I think is undeniable how similar that is. Although it has a Borderlands style of all the sort of junker stuff, the use of massive pipes and these round bits of architecture, very often with lights on them, is hard to deny that almost feels like they've sort of copied to an extent. You have the text scav down here, presumably scavenger, so there may be a group of people called the scavengers. I'm going to try not to explore stuff like that too much today. I need to stick on the location stuff. You can see the blue glow here as we look up on the internals of this area, so when we jump to the next clip, that will, I think, tie in and make a bit of sense. This area, I think, is it's tied to the Rippers. It might be that there's sort of an offshoot of the Rippers that this maybe ties to specifically, but either way, it's, you know, more bandit-y, more psycho-y. It's very apparent that that's the case. The Mad Max vibes, all of that are here. So this, I think, would then be part of the internals of that. You've got that in the distance there, you have that same sort of purpley blue glow that was on the looking to the interior from the exterior just now. So same sort of architecture of the lights. You know, I think that's connected to the same part, but this is an internal shot. Just a couple of those. And again, jumping to this outside shot now, you have the same architecture again. It may just be that this is all spread all over the place, but it makes sense that these may sort of fit together as some of the maybe earlier areas of the game. You have a very sort of tundra feel here. You have this white rock comes up in a few places, but the tone here is a lot more typical Borderlands, so it's nice to see that. The only other thing I would point out here is that when you get to the end of this clip, if you go up to the top of the cliffs here, you can see that this is connecting to the grassy area. So you've got an area that's going to be more desolate, more wasteland, which I think is maybe going to be sort of maybe the orangey rocky area that we'll look at later, but it was pretty much only seen in the introduction animation, the cinematics that they showed on the trailer. So I think that maybe is going to connect to the arid area, and you can see as we go through this area that the grass and everything is dying off a lot more, but then the grass at the top here is a lush green area, which is one of the other major places that we see in the trailer. And that's connecting here as well, you can see in the background. So my inclination is that it's sort of roughly the same sort of area. And in the top there you can see this building, and I'm not 100%, but I think the building over the mega city is huge, is absolutely massive, and I think that may very well be part of that building, and it's still quite far away, but it still looks absolutely huge and imposing. So just another little note there. As you go through this clip, you can see in the building on the right this green circular glow. There's one other of these at least in the trailer, and I assume that is pointing out that there is a fast travel station there. That's graphically the closest thing that I've seen on here to a fast travel, I'd say, you know, compared to anything else I can think of from Borderlands. That's most likely to be a fast travel station. So again, you've got the the arid ground. You've got big sort of rib cage bones here. It's good to see those. That's just it's very Borderlands, as I said in the other video. So yeah, it's nice to see an area like this. It's a bit more rough and ready. This guy here, the location he's standing in, you've got a lot of the pipes in that still, and you do have a lot of vines. This feels like a bit of a sunken down area, but I assume because there's some sort of yellow on the plants down the bottom, they look maybe a little bit dead. This might be on that kind of crossover from the arid area to the grassy area. Maybe a bit more of a sunk down kind of, not like a valley, but like a crag or something that he's standing in there. And now we do actually transition to the green area, the very lush area. You can see the animal bones theme is sort of crossing over here as well. And you've got those white rocks on the edge here. So this may be very close to that previous area. I couldn't say for definite. This area is a lot more like the highlands of Borderlands 2 or something like that. As you go through this shot, you can see on the right here what looks like a roof. And so these are actually kind of almost kind of farmland, rurally kind of housing, I guess, or storehouses, something like that. You can see another one right on the right of this shot, that if you zoom in, that appears to be that same sort of housing as we just saw on the edge of the claptrap shot, and then down here as well, just sort of sprinkled around the more grassy area. So it may be that the grass and tundra area are completely tied together all the time, and the tundra areas are just the areas that aren't getting light in the same way. It might be lower down areas that are just not exposed to the sun or whatever it is that's giving life to things on this planet. You zoom in, it's just some more bits and bobs, just some interesting things. I don't know if that's a plant or a building. Another little hut down here. But you can see in the background, so this is, I think, one of those doors we were looking at earlier that said nope. So you can see the massive wall here. You've got the big pipes going in. So these pipes would be those pipes that were chucking all of that refuse out when we were looking at the shot with the siren, and then the door just to the left where the Vault Hunter with the blue light blades was fighting. So then this wall is going all the way around in a circle underneath this big massive structure, and these are the sort of bits going out that are the skyline that we saw in all of those very early clips. I'll show this from another angle, but I think that is the case. So whatever this is very, very significant, and yeah, this is sort of like a cage keeping all of those people in there, keeping that mega city underneath, so that the timekeeper can get them to perform whatever tasks it is that he's looking for. Just have another little scan around, see if anything else jumps out. Good question about where these pipes are going. Like, I mean, that's almost like some of these pipes are bringing refuse in rather than out. So what are they bringing the refuse from? It will be all revealed later this year. Again, the green area, so just tying that together with our skag-like friend here. When we get on the vehicle here, you can see the farmhouse sort of vibe. It's sort of odd to see that. It feels out of place with what I was expecting from a lot of the other areas and the idea of the story and stuff. There's these kind of, you know, more like mom and pop kind of rural sort of family housing vibe. So it's going to be curious to see how these fit into the larger story. Lots of these just kind of pretty flimsy, very basic structures. A bit of a contrast to the stuff we were seeing in the city with the more run down kind of lo-fi buildings, more substantial with, you know, metals and all the rest of it, whereas these are just wood shacks. In the background here we see two different structures that are worth paying attention to. So on the right we've got these white with kind of orange pipes, which is more of an industrial building. We see some more of these in the trailer in a moment. And on the left, as we progress through, we see that big main mega structure. Again, at the bottom here, we can see the edge of that gigantic wall going around the edge, and then you can see the kind of the webbing, the kind of weird skyline bits coming off of that main structure. So I think that that is, you know, you've got the building, the sort of top of the cage as it were, and then these big outer walls, and the mega city is in there. And so perspective throws this off quite a lot. It doesn't really do it justice, just at, I think, how massive this must be, because that still looks very big, but to be the size that I'm imagining it, at least, it is, you know, mind-bogglingly big. It is very, very impressive. This is over to the side with the more industrial building. I don't know if it's the one we just saw, but it has the potential to be, because you could have these being the three sort of cylinders, the towers that were going up the side. I think the architecture implied that this was the other way around, though, so it may be a different one, or maybe that the angle of the other shot is more from the right hand side. The grassy area, again, sort of a bit run down. You see wear and tear on a lot of stuff around here. Obviously it was very polished and clean at some point. I don't know if these areas have become derelict, so maybe these were old places that were used for power or whatever, and the idea is that, you know, this is looking at kind of the history or the evolution or whatever of the power sources on the planet, how things are being run. So these may be sort of defunct, derelict buildings that aren't really doing their function anymore, and they're just a predecessor to things like, you know, whatever's going on with the mega city and the main structure. Just going through, switch to a different player here, but the same structure, slightly different angle, slightly different time of day. And yeah, grass as far as the eyes can see in each direction. It's the big guy just slamming down. So the background here, I'm a little bit unclear on this. I'm less inclined to think that this is tied to that previous area, because the colors are a bit off here. So this could be somewhere completely different, but because it's sort of white and a reddy sort of orange, I've bunched this in with that last shot. But yeah, it's hard to say. You're too zoomed in to make anything out really. So yeah, this could be anywhere. A bit more gold here with the white. So, and you've got the wear on the paint. So that's partly why I felt that was maybe tied into the more industrial buildings that we saw in the green area. Although this is looking like a lot more of a significant structure, so it's really hard to say. I think this area is also connected to the green area in some way, because a lot of the plants are very much the same. It may just be copy and paste. This could be an entirely different location. Who knows? It depends how they've got things laid out in this world, but it's got the potential to be that. You've got a bit of overgrowth on the plant side of things, and you've got quite a bit of wear and tear on the building itself. So this may be somewhere that's also a bit derelict, or has some specific historical significance, so they're wanting to let you have that feel of the age. The architecture certainly lends itself towards you know, real world megalithic structures, so it could be, you know, the whole scene is trying to give a real sense of history to this area. I pointed out in the last video how the structures on the left here have sort of a vault symbol-y geometry to them. Whether that's just coincidence, I couldn't say. It's worth noting this this light up here. I think I can get a better look at that. There is a symbol up here, and I'm still trying to stick with the locations, but this very much looks like a kind of bow and arrowy symbol. So whether that's somehow connected to the way that we will learn that grappling hook, which is also a similar blue, maybe that's tied in. Maybe there's some sort of, I mean, this chick definitely gives me sort of techno elven vibes, cyber elven we'll say. So you know, that's a cool mashup if they've gone in that direction. The Battleborn vibes here definitely ring well with me, as I mentioned in the last video. But yeah, you've got this very similar blue with a bow and arrow, or kind of a hooky kind of thing. So whether this is somewhere we'll learn that, or I did wonder whether this area down here that has a bit of a monorail-y kind of vibe to it, whether that's just an arrow of direction. It may be that this area has some sort of transport that's something that we can use. Who knows? Now we're on to the snowy area, a very mountainous, rocky region. You've got these very, very big technological structures, very, very megalithic structures put into everything, which gives, you know, the sense of some sort of power source or some sort of significant resource that's being obtained from this area. We like talking about red lights on here, red lights throughout. You've got a bit of a radar dishy thing in the back of this scene. And then you've got the bridge down the bottom here. So I think the angle of this implies, I don't think it was that structure. So I think that the angles we see these from implies that we see down this road later. And then I think there's a sideways bridge that connects this up. And you see that this structure, you see this from the front at a different angle. I think we also see on foot, if you're walking up this way, I think that there's a shot where we see this from the side. But yeah, lots of little buildings down here just sort of scattered throughout. Some nice little ice pools to go and dip our toes in. And next one. Yeah, so then we see this sort of bridge structure. And you've got a bit more of what appears to be a bit more front on. So if this is the same area, this would be that front two lanes of that mountain, and then this is that sort of back section. Although I didn't really look at those lights before. Not sure if they were there, so it could be extremely different place. But yeah, definitely part of that same snowy area. This guy is on that bridge, I think, in the snowy area. Not too much you can see here, but just tying him into that, so he is part of that biome. You've got the mountains and the snow, because this is that big megalithic sort of rectangular structure, and then these are the two coming out. You can see that pretty clearly, I think. So this is the side of that rectangular one, and then these are the two coming out the front of that building. As we approach from the side here. So that other shot's off to the right. Again, we have a green circular light down here. You know, looking at this angle, I feel like there should be some more text or something else going on with that. So maybe my assumption of that being related to a fast travel or something is completely wrong, but that does appear to be the same sort of green light, green orb that we saw in the more tundra-y area. Let me just click that back. Yeah, so definitely the same asset. So it must have some sort of significance in some way. And that's the end of the snow area. Oh, not quite. So I think based on the colors of the metal here and the type of technology, that this is probably the interior or some part of the interior to that sort of the types of buildings that are in the snowy area. Not too much more to say about it than that. I get the impression that is the same. So now we're getting on to our last main kind of location divider. This location, I think, is very much sort of Tibetan themed, sort of Tibetan monastery-ish vibe, a bit Athena-ish. You have the cables on the left here, the ropes going with the bits of rag, which I think were all sort of coloured at some point. It's a bit more worn down now. Some of the makeshifty sort of shacks at the top, a bit more handmade. As we jump up, you can see the node there, the same as the one we saw in the clip with the guy chilling in the chair. As we jump up, it's all that white sort of rocky area. We've got a bit of snow here, so presumably it's on the edge of the snow area, or it could be a completely different location altogether, but if it ties together, it's somehow tied to the snowy area. But as we come through here, ends up having this, it gives me the impression that maybe this is a really out the way, outskirts kind of place, far from the tall building, hidden away from the timekeeper. We've got some of his forces here, some buildings that are a bit run down, still people about. You've got a mix of technology here where you've got bits of fabric even attached to what are presumably previously abandoned buildings, same as the other industrial buildings may have been abandoned, so these have been a bit more lived in, a little bit more touched up or looked after, things built to them to try and just, you know, make a comfortable dwelling for people. And with the awning here on the left and the sort of top of a sort of almost a shriny kind of monastery kind of structure on the left, that's the sort of thing that pushes me to thinking this is a mountainous kind of escape area. There you go, a little bit of a better shot of that as the camera turns around. Nothing much more to see, sort of older-ish abandoned buildings that don't look like they're doing very much at the moment. And this area, I think, is probably sort of an internal area, hidden away in those sort of Tibetan mountains. You have the same sort of white or pale rock sort of in the background here. And then you also have, again, you have the ropes with the fabrics, with that sort of Tibetan kind of mountain monastery sort of vibe. And these guys wandering around definitely give off that sort of mojo. Lots of hanging ornaments and other things that make this feel very much like an escape of type. I think this is almost definitely going to have to be somewhere which is a social, not a social space, but like an NPC area, a sanctuary equivalent. You've got a few people that are wandering around here that appear to be just non-enemy types, NPCs that are just going about doing their business, doing whatever. It's worth noting, I highlighted this shrine before. I have a video I'm working on connecting that and the mural that we saw with the triangles, and as best I can I'll try and put that into a cohesive video, but that will be coming up soon. Nothing we can see really from zooming in at the main building there. This is just a different angle, just a little further to the right of our previous shot. You see another chap here. I couldn't see this in the last video, but I managed to get the quality up a bit. So this does appear to be a person welding. So once again, passive NPCs going around just doing their thing gives the vibe that this is a social area. This is maybe going to be our equivalent of sanctuary, hidden away in Tibetan style mountains. So got a few other clips left. No, one more location. So with the type of ground we have here, with this guy with the big red blades, and on the right here as we go through the clip, you can see this big pink crystal, pinky purple crystal, and then on the left as well, these are always iridium. These assets may even be taken from Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. We see these in the Wheat Wild Dankness. These are iridium crystals. The main place that we know iridium is supposed to be in this game is on Elpis. So with the type of floor that we have there, the type of white rocks, and the crystals, I think that this is on Elpis. I think this is a shot on Elpis, and up in the sky here you have this break in colour that's sort of going through the sky. I think the bluey colour, I think the darker colour is potentially just space. It's the void of space looking across, and the blue here is very similar to the blue that we see on the sort of the smashed shield around the planet, the big tear. So this is sort of the reflections, the lighting coming off of that, as we're sort of, you know, here we're upside down, so it looks like the sky, but that's actually, you know, this is Elpis, and then we're looking at the shield, the sky above Kairos. You can sort of see that consistently sort of stays Stays there as you go through. Very, very mottled and knick-knacky area again. I think this thing on the right here potentially could be like the Rippers, like a crashed Ripper ship. So they've makeshift a rocket and blasted up to Elpis, and this is kind of a little encampment that they've set. Alternatively, this could be not a crashed rocket. It could be that this is similar to the kind of rocket engines that you saw in Borderlands 3 when you were at the Skyworld. There was lots of little kind of jets attached to a lot of the meteors and the rocks and the rock itself, for I guess just repositioning, just trying to keep it set in its place, something like that. So it may be connected to that, but my initial inclination is this is going to be like a crashed ship, and that's how these guys are here, and they've sort of set up their own little camps everywhere. The sky, you can see, is broken a bit more there, but yeah, you've got a very odd kind of dark void before you see the blue. We will see the sky again in a minute, so you'll be able to see that. Now we're out of the areas that I could try to tie to anything else. Some of these are just interior locations that I'm a lot less sure on what they could be. So you've got this area here, could be absolutely anywhere. The yellow power source in the middle of the room is very similar to the kind of power source that appears to be on that large building, or whatever it is that we see behind the Vault Hunters in that clip. Not really anything that you can see here. I keep zooming in on this monitor. I don't think it's in English, so I think that's a waste of my time. Another interior location here with a couple of the Timekeeper's forces. Doesn't really give too much away, with the pinky colour in the background and the circular doorway. I did wonder if this was connected to the kind of sanctuary place, the Tibetan area, or the other one would be, because of the roundness, the sort of fallen-y Ripper areas. But then why would it have lots of neons? The neon lights sort of throw that off a bit. I'm not sure, so wouldn't really like to hazard a guess too much on that with any specificity. And then Zane in here, another internal location. Couldn't speculate on that at all. So then this is our red rocky area that we see in the cinematics. So my sort of assumption is that if this sort of like a spectrum, then you'd have like this red rocky area at one end of it, which then leads into the more arid areas, into the green areas, into the more built up and more populated areas where the megacity is, and the giant structure machine, whatever it is, and then further out from that you would have the snowy areas and potentially the sanctuary sort of Tibetan areas. So it may be that these are all centralized around these sort of mega cities, or that one specific place. They may be all just scattered around all over the place, but you can see how there's sort of a bit of a transition between the places we've identified so far. Just some more shots of that red rocky area. Not very much here at all. This area may not even be part of the game. It may just be an area they decided they like the idea of for their cinematic, just so it's all nice and clear. Just getting to the end here, and the Timekeeper, you can see Elpis in the background, and you can see the sort of blue I was talking about with the broken shield in the sky, how potentially that is, if you're looking at a sort of a flat sheet at that, and you're on a sort of side of the moon on Elpis and looking down, you could see how that sort of tear, that colour is potentially what you would see in the sky above you. So that's where my assumption was on that. So there you go. Break free. So this is, I think, going to be the most important part of Borderlands 4. I think this is, the whole idea behind everything we're going to see in the story. It's going to be all about breaking free, breaking away, the megacity people getting out of that prison, getting out of the prison of the planet itself. So there we go, Borderlands 4 and wishlist. So thank you very much for joining me for this locations look at the Borderlands 4 first look trailer. I hope that was a bit fun. If it was, please stick around, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Take it easy. Peace out.